Live struggle legacy. It's a whole movement.
You ready? Hey everybody, it's your boy MP. Live struggle legacy, and welcome to episode 9 of the Live Struggle Legacy podcast. So if you haven't already done so, you might want to go listen to the first 8 because we're deep into this story. I took you through all over the southern hemisphere pretty much. Right now, we're in Williamsburg, Medium, right? That's FCI, my first real prison that I was in. Now, if you haven't already done so, take a moment to listen to the previous episodes. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that follow button on whatever platform you're on. Drop a comment, engage. If you want me to elaborate on the story, drop it in the comments. Send me a DM. Let's get active. So, I'm going to take you back a little bit to where I left off. I was telling you about the prison economy and the way that works. I was telling you about the different hustles that you have in prison. I tapped a little bit on spirituality and what I was doing to keep myself together personally in prison. But today I want to talk about, I'm going to bring a little comedy to the show today. I'm going to tell you about all my cellies. So in the previous episode, I told you about just a couple of my cellies. My very first cellie in the federal prison, I told you about was the dude. His name was Chuck from the Bahamas, Charleston by way of the Bahamas, South Carolina. Real cool dude. Snored like a motorboat, but real good people. And then I had my homeboy as a cellie for a little while, and then I went over to another unit, the Unicorn unit, and I was telling you about my cellie from Durham. So I want to talk a little bit more about my cellie from Durham. They had bullet wounds all in them. Now, let me paint this picture for you. If you remember back in the day in Living Color, when Damon Wayans he was like the prison intellectual, trying to clown people that get into books and stuff and use words misappropriately. And, so if I could paint a picture of my cellie, that's exactly how he is and who he is. And his glasses used to always be like tilted sideways. And his face would be tilted half sideways. Now, in the man's defense, he did get shot in the face with a 12 gauge. So you can see how naturally he might have a little bit of a lean to him. But, so if you have a cellie, I don't care if it's your best friend. You're around this motherfucker 24 hours a day, right? You're locked in the cell with this man. You got to eat together, and he's snoring, you got to deal with it. You're snoring, you got to deal with it. If you're locked down, he has to take a shit, you got to deal with it. You got to take a shit, he got to deal with it. It's just part of living in a confined space when you're incarcerated, right? Especially when you're in a higher institution. Because in a higher institution, you're in this tiny little cell, and you're locked in that cell at least 4 or 5 times a day. And if you're locked down, then you're locked down in that cell 24 hours a day. So I'm telling you all this to say I don't care how cool you are, there's going to be times when things get on your nerves, right? So now my one cellie, he had been down a long time, and he had been in Unicorn a long time. And I was telling you about the different jobs. And the Unicorn job, that's like the big baller job, right? So to speak. I mean, you make a whole $1 an hour compared to like 12 cents an hour, right? So some of those dudes that have been in Unicorn like tenured for I don't know how many years, they're making like maybe $5 an hour. Now you're like super balling, right? So my cellie, he had been down for a long time. He had a little money from the streets, and he had Unicorn money. So all this motherfucker did was eating these big bowls, eating this, eating that, and he was a cool dude, but we used to bump heads once in a while. But there's this one story in particular. They lock the doors every night at 9 p.m. You're locked in your cell. You got to stand up for 10 o'clock count. They do stand-up counts. Stand-up counts at I think they do a stand-up count at 5 a.m. They do a stand-up count at 4 p.m. And they do a stand-up count at 10 p.m. So as far as I can think of, those are the main stand-up counts. And I want to say they have like up to 7 counts a day. Some of those you can actually be in the bed sleep. They just come around and shine a light in there. But you actually have like these official BOP-wide stand-up count where they're counting everybody in the BOP at the same time to make sure nobody's listening. So they lock you down every night at 9. You're locked in with your cellie for the rest of the night until they open them doors at about after the 5 a.m. count, so just before 6 a.m. So every single night, if you're in a medium high, you are locked in your cell with your cellie from 9 p.m. to about 6 a.m. No exceptions. Give or take a few minutes, right? So it's locked down. I got my little commissary bag, and you know, I'm eating pretty healthy, but at the same time, there's only so many things you could get. And one of my guilty pleasures up the road was Cheetos, right? Terrible, toxic, poisonous food, right? But it was one of my guilty pleasures up the road. So these are generic Cheetos, and I'm crunching these Cheetos, and they're so good. Now, mind you, my Cellies always eating, and he's like a sloppy ass eater too. I can hear him. He's one of the people, he eats. It's like you can hear everything. He's spitting all over the place, and this is just how he is all the time. Like the man spits all over the place when he talks. So you know, but he's okay with me. Like I'm not trying to like rag on the man, but I'm building up to this story. So I'm sitting here eating my generic Cheetos, and I'm reading the bag, I'm reading the ingredients and how horrible they are, but fuck it, it's good. And I'm crunching them, and they're so crunchy, they're so fresh, they're not stale. I'm like, damn, these motherfuckers are good. And then the bag says crunch loudly. So I'm crunching, and every time I bite, I can just hear him crunching. And then I hear my cellie making all these weird noises and shit. Like a little fucking gremlin and shit. So, you know, and I'm like, Cellie, you alright? And so he's like pretty much growling at me. He's like, oh, you gotta chew so motherfucking loud? You gotta do all that crunching so loud. And I just started laughing in the man's face. So I'm like, listen, bro, you eat all these bowls. You're over here slobbering all over the time. I gotta listen to your lips smacking all day, every day. I finally get my little commissary. I get my little bag of Cheetos, and now like I can't even crunch. You got me walking on Cheetos over here. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, you would think that he would try to run me off because he's probably been in this cell like 5 years, and I just came over from another unit. I only been on the compound maybe 6 months or so, right? But you would think that he would try to run me off, but it wasn't long before he put in a request. That motherfucker got the fuck up out of there, right? And it's kind of hard to get a bottom bunk. Everything is tenured, right? So I dropped down to the bottom bunk. So, and you actually have to put in a request. You can't just do it automatically because every bed is supposed to be assigned to a name and a number. So I dropped down to the bottom bunk, and you know, I'm riding solo for maybe a couple days, but they keep these prisons packed, y'all. You won't see an open bed too often. And I was fortunate enough at this time when we actually had 2-man cells, because by the time I left that spot, every single one of those cells was a 3-man cell. They were packed like sardines in there. And it's already too small for 2 grown-ass men. And then you had a whole nother 3rd grown-ass man in there, right? So I dropped down to the bottom bunk. And like in prison, you know, the bottom bunk kind of iffy. Like, sure, you want the bottom bunk because you don't have to climb. But if shit ever get wrong, it's real easy for a motherfucker to get you and stuff you in that bottom bunk and fuck you up, right? There isn't really nowhere to go. But, you know, I'm not into nothing. I'm not worried about that. But if you're like me and you're kind of like a neat freak, you don't like people touching your shit, I don't want nobody sitting on my bunk. And if you got a bottom bunk and you got a cellie, well, when your cellie's homeboys are in there, it's only a matter of time before somebody sits on your bunk. And if you have respect, you're not going to ever sit on somebody's bunk, right? That'll actually get you fucked up. You sit on the wrong person's bunk. But not everybody has respect, and your cellie may or may not have respect. You know, you got somebody brand new, super green. You know, they don't know all the ropes, or they don't give a fuck. Some people just, we all know, are disrespectful, right? So anyway, I had this bottom bunk in this room to myself for maybe a week. I don't even think it was a week. And then they bring this dude in, this big dude, Big D. I don't even remember his real name. We'll call him Big D. And he was cool as fuck. So I thought. He was cool, I'll say that. But the man had some problems, and I'm going to get into those problems in a moment. So, now mind you, I got the bottom bunk, and I'm the little dude, and this is a big dude. This dude's probably 300 pounds, probably 6'4", 6'5", big dude, right? From South Carolina, and fresh in on the bed. Like, he didn't even spend much time on the county. Like, whatever he had going on, he was sentenced and shipped. Didn't have a whole lot of time either. And, like, you know, to be totally honest, like, you don't wish a lot of time on anybody, but a lot of times when people don't have a whole lot of time, and you're in there with people with life, 20 years, 30 years, myself personally, I had more than a decade, right, as a sentence. So, you know, when you get around somebody that's coming in and out, like, They don't really care about the respect. They don't really care about, like, they're just like, okay, I'm gonna do this little bit and go home, right? So they tend to be maybe a little bit more disrespectful. Not necessarily, I'm generalizing, but I'm speaking mainly about this one dude specifically, Big D, right? So he's in the top bunk, and, you know, real cool dude, not the smartest, not the sharpest tech in the drawer, but, like, you could tell he wasn't no, like, fucked up person, but he had some fucked up things that I'm about to get into. So I told you they locked the door every night. Well, Big D every night used to be reading these romance novels. And, like, me personally, when I was up the road, like, I'm not trying to be in all the magazines with all the pussy, and forgive my language, but, you know, looking at all the, I'm not trying to fiend, because the more I focus on that, I'm not around any women. I'm not trying to turn into a gunner, as we talked about in previous episodes. I'm not trying to be the guy who's trying to jack his dick every time the female guard goes by, right? I'm not trying to be that guy. And with the more you focus on those magazines and all that, the more you get like that. So a little side note, a whole other hustle that I didn't talk about in the Prison Economy podcast were these things called jack packs. So dudes make these things called jack packs, and these are actually little pictures that people cut out. Somebody will somehow smuggle in, like a Hustler or, you know, or whatever magazine, like a flick, you know, that shows titties, pussy, fucking whatever, right? And what they do to maximize the hustle is they cut the pictures out, and then they put them in these plastic Ziploc bags that you get from commissary, and now it's sealed. You can take it in the shower with you. You can wet the back of the bag and slap it on the wall, and now you got your date for the night, right? They call it a jack pack. So if you're listening and you're not watching, I'm doing a masturbation motion with my hand, okay? That's what these motherfuckers do, is they slap the picture of the date for the night on the wall of the shower, and now they can gun down the jack pack, right? And these things can sell for who knows how much, depending on, like, who it is in the picture, what the picture shows, the details. I mean, people would actually pay for black and white photocopies as long as it's showing some pussy, right? So I'm telling you all this to say that, well, I'm not judging anybody, but that's not where I'm trying to make my mind go. And I have a very visual mind. Like, I can go in that shower and close my eyes and be with anybody I want to be. I don't have to have a jack pack. I don't have to have a magazine, right? And I'm not going to sit there and say, like, I'm a man with testosterone and everything else like everybody else. I'm not going to say that I didn't jack my dick a few times in prison. Every man does it. Some do it more than others, okay? And my cellie just so happened to be obsessed with the magazines. And he would read these graphic novels. They'd be like 300-page novels, but you're opening up and they're graphic. They're like, he spread the lips of the pussy and this and that. And I'm not trying to be all graphic and you know, sexual, but I'm telling you, this is the content of these books that he would read every single night before he went to bed. So I remember waking up one night and hearing this noise. The fuck is that? And just hoping that I'm tripping. Like, maybe he's just up there, you know, moving his legs back and forth, or maybe he's got like a nervous twitch of the leg. But all I hear is, and I can hear the fabric going. So I'm like trying to go back to sleep, like trying not to have conflict, just praying to God that this motherfucker is not jacking his dick 6 inches above my fucking head in the top bunk, okay? But the shit keeps going on and keeps going on. So finally, I tapped the top of the bunk. I said, yo, Cellie, you all right? He pretends like I woke him up. What up, Cellie? Why you waking me up? What's the matter, man? So what's wrong, right? So it's probably 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, yo, bro, you up there jacking your dick? He said, no, man, I'm asleep. I'm asleep. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, all right. So this shit keeps happening every night to the point where, like, I'm not trying to catch a motherfucker jacking their dick, all right? But I'm also not trying to have a motherfucker jack their dick while they're on top of me. You got the whole day when I'm out in the cell to do this shit. You can go to the shower to do this shit. You don't need to be jacking your dick on top of my head, man. And maybe y'all might think I'm tripping, but personally, I don't think that's appropriate. Not in my cell, goddammit. So So finally one night, and this time I swear he had a fifi or something up there. For those who don't know, for the uninitiated, a fifi is when it's like a homemade pocket pussy. Okay? This is uncensored. I'm telling you what it is. You can't censor this shit, man. It's like a rubber glove that they make with like a toilet paper roll, and then you can fill it up with hair grease or Vaseline. They sell all that shit on the commissary, and it's like a pocket pussy, so you can have more than just your hand. You can have a sensation like a stranger, right? If you remember what a stranger is, when you sit on your hand till it gets numb and then you jack your dick, it's a stranger, right? So like people have whole pocket vaginas. They call them fifis. And I swear to you, this man must have had a fifi up here, because now I hear some kind of liquid like splash, splash, splash. What the fuck you doing? So I jump up. I'm ready to fight. I'm like, yo, you man, you're jacking your dick, man. You need to wait till I'm out the cell. So now he's going back and forth. He's like, oh man, you trying me? I'm asleep. You keep waking me up. I'm like, bro, are you jacking your dick in your sleep? Right? So it's like, I'm not trying to catch the man with his dick in his hand, but we kept having conflict to the one point where like, I'm about to fight. I'm ready to fight. I don't care. And mind you, this motherfucker's like 6'3", 6'4". He's like literally double my weight. But I don't give a fuck. I got that lock right there. I'm ready to grab that lock. Like, motherfucker, I'm not trying to bust your head over a little masturbation, but man, you disrespecting me. I don't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, you put yourself in a room with somebody masturbating, a stranger. It's just not a good feeling, right? So, other than that, Cellie was cool as fuck. But that's kind of a big deal. And then I start checking resumes and shit. I tell one of my bros, I'm like, yo, man, I'm telling them, like, man, this motherfucker ain't jacking his dick at night. And then they're like, yeah, but you know his crew, his homeboys, and I'm not saying this is everybody from Carolina, but there's one. I told you my homeboy from fucking Jacksonville was a mad gunner, right? So, coming to find out, all his little homeboys, they're the ones that kind of like the homie from Jayville I was telling you about, they are jack-off guys. They're gunners. They gun women down like in the public. I mean, you get caught in the streets, your ass is a sex offender. You can't go within a certain amount of distance of a school. Like, come on, man. Like, that's creepy. I mean, I'm not trying to judge people. I don't want that shit under where I'm sleeping, 6 inches above my head. So it calmed down when the dude sees, like, I'm ready to fight about this shit. You know what I mean? Like, and, you know, he don't have a lot of time. He's not trying to lose good time. And I could tell he liked me. And overall, I liked him. But not when you're jacking your dick in the room, man. Come on. So, the first opportunity I got, a cell opened up. I'm like, I ran. I'm getting the fuck out this room. I don't give a fuck about that bottom bunk. Keep it. Get you another jack off, Cellie. I'm gone. So, I moved in with this dude named Bubba. Now, this is the big joke. This is hilarious. So let me take you all the way back to when I first got indicted, right? I'm going to tie this in a second. Well, when they picked me up, I left out a pretty important scene, right? I told you they took me to Hillsborough County Jail, but what I didn't tell you is that right across the street from West Shore Mall, there's a bank. The first stop they made in the paddy wagon, this is before prison, this is before sentencing, this is when I first got picked up. When they picked up me and all my co-defendants, they took me to this weird ass bank. And this goes to show you how shady the feds are. So now I'm shackled, they're walking me, I got police all around me with guns, and they take me through a bank lobby that's got like the big Masonic symbols in the middle of the floor. And then they take me up the stairs in a bank, through all these office buildings, and they take me down a hallway, and then we go through this door, and the weirdest thing you ever saw, in the middle of the bank, you go into this door, and there's a suite, and it's like a fucking jail. They got cells in there. They got a little computer in there. The dude that was sitting at the computer was the same dude that was actually at the, when I told you a long time ago in a previous episode, when I had to run, right, because there was a transport truck and there was a dude pretending to be a truck driver, and I told my co-defendant, like, bro, that's the motherfucking police. And sure enough it was, because here this motherfucker was sitting at the computer doing all our intake, right, in this strange ass fucking office building jail cell in the middle of a fucking bank, a fully functioning bank. So during the day, people going in there making their deposits, withdrawals. You don't even know there's a fucking holding cell up there with some federal motherfucking inmates sitting in it where they do their questioning. So that's where they were trying to put the pressure on us. They had one of my co-defendants in the holding tank, and then what they do is they would take one of us out, and then you're right there next to the holding tank. So I think there were 2 or 3 cells, and these are real cells. They got bars on them. They got those stainless steel toilets and sinks in them, in the middle of a fucking bank building, right? So I'm gonna tie this all in. So the fucking cops are sitting there grilling me. Oh, we know you were driving. Excuse me. We know you were driving this. We saw you speeding away into that. I'm like, man, I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about. I need my lawyer. I don't speak no fucking English. I need my fucking lawyer, right? And I'll never forget what the dude said. And you see this in all the fucking movies and the cop shows where the cop tries to act all tough and he's all in your face. You're cuffed clearly. You know what I mean? Like, but you don't scare me. But he's like, you're going to end up in prison with a 300-pound cellie named Bubba. Well, if that motherfucker wasn't right. Because when I moved out of the room with Mr. Jackoff, man, I moved in with Bubba. Bubba was from a little town called Drexel. One stoplight. I remember that's exactly what he used to tell me. It was right somewhere outside of Charlotte. And his name was Bubba. And he was a big, fat, 300-pound dude named Bubba. But Bubba was cool as a motherfucker. He was. I gotta say it. That's what they didn't know. Them bitch-ass motherfuckers trying to threaten me into, telling on everybody. They put the press down on you. So anyway, fast forward to my cellie, Bubba. Yeah, I had a 300-pound cellie named Bubba. And he was cool as a motherfucker. And, he had every kind of hustle under the sun. Bubba was into everything. And Bubba was hilarious. Bubba used to have me laughing so hard when one of the female... So I'm going to say some Bubba-isms. I'm going to give y'all a couple Bubba-isms. These are about as inappropriate as they can get. These are not my isms. These are Bubba-isms, and they're definitely worth sharing. So the one of the COs, she was kind of an asshole, but she had a fat ass. And of course, all the gunners, they'd be ready when she'd walk by. But you could be blind to see that this woman has a fat ass. And she didn't have like much of a chest. You know what I mean? Like no big deal. But Bubba, every time she would walk by, Bubba would be like, all that meat, not a tater in the house. So that's one Bubba-ism. And let me think of another Bubba-ism. Bubba used to say, okay, so there was this one chick. She was fine. She was real slim. And she was cool as fuck. She used to flirt like a motherfucker. And her husband worked there. A lot of times the COs have spouses there. He was the biggest asshole in the whole fucking institution. I forget what they called him, but he was the biggest asshole. He'll come shake you down for nothing. I swear he's gay because he would throw you in the room and make you get butt naked and look in your asshole and shit just for no reason. Because you look at him wrong and he throws you in the room, get naked. They could do that whenever they want. So they're like polar opposites. He was this asshole. She was fine though. She was sweet as can be. And what they call an eater. Like that motherfuckers used to be gunning her down, and she'll look, and she might even change her position a little bit to show you a little something, right? That's how it is, right? Animal nature. So anyway, she would walk by and count. Bubba would look at her. Bubba would say, "Son, I'll suck that pussy till her head caves in." Another Bubba-ism, not my words, Bubba's words. And like let's say somebody would come in the cell talking shit. That's the one thing I didn't like about Bubba. Yeah, way too much traffic. Way too much traffic. Like I'm low key. I don't need all this traffic. I'm not trying to have these people come around my cell. But then again, I did move in with Bubba to get away from the jack-off man. And Bubba, let's say you came around, Bubba didn't want you there. Beat your feet, son. Bubba would say. Bubba was short as hell. He was about as wide as he was tall. But cool as a motherfucker. Cool as a fan. So I rode with Bubba for a while, but he had too much going on. Too many hustles. And I'll just be honest, like some of those characters that he would bring around, the most unsavory characters in the whole compound. Like dudes that were suspect for stealing shoes. People with gambling problems, they'll steal your shoes. You know, because you can only buy so many shoes. It's easy to sell them. You buy a brand new pair of shoes, you go sell them to somebody in another unit. They only sell like 3 pairs of shoes. Nobody's gonna know those are your shoes unless you like put some kind of mark on them or something. So that was a big thing. You got new shoes, motherfuckers would go in your cell and take them. And this dude that Bubba had coming all the time, he was on the radar for stealing people's shoes, right? And people actually ready to fuck him up. So I had enough. So as soon as the cell opened up, there was this dude was he was actually the leader of the roster community, like the roster shot caller. His name was Pratt, from Jamaica originally, but I think he caught his case in Tallahassee. Pratt was cool as a motherfucker, probably one of the coolest cellies I ever had. And if you remember some of the other people I was telling you about, like Sun and IU, God bless the dead, who passed away, all these dudes were super cool. And man, one person that was in the Unicorn unit with me that I didn't introduce in this podcast, but I really wanna bring this dude on the episode because I'm friends with dude to this day, and his name's C. I'll just leave it at that until he wants to introduce himself. But C was from Charleston, South Carolina. I believe he caught his case in Fayetteville, North Carolina, or something like that. He was kind of back and forth, Charleston to Fayetteville. But when IU passed away, C took over the Yoruba, the African spirituality, right? And C was full of wisdom. C and I used to share books all the time, and C was on his workout shit too. Like, we had a lot of common ground. C was into music. C was writing children's books. And when C got out, he dropped the album, but C actually became a pretty successful filmmaker to this day. C makes he's been featured in a couple television series, a couple movies. He's done big things, giving back to the community, helping out other convicts get right when they come home. Just a solid stand-up dude. So big shout out to my big bro C. Well, I'm gonna have you on the podcast, big homie. I got to get that interview. So y'all are gonna meet him right here in the next season. But I brought him up because I was telling you about my next Cellie, Pratt, and excuse me. C and Pratt were cool. That whole community of like, you had the Rastas, you had the Nation of Islam, you had the More Science Temple. You had, all these dudes, even though you have different, your kind of beliefs to a certain extent, all these dudes would come together to throw events and uplift one another. So there was a lot of unity in this spot. And my Cellie Pratt was a big part of that unity. And Pratt and I used to share books. He put me onto some really unbelievable books. Pratt was on his yoga shit. He was on his fitness shit. I mean, probably out of all the Cellies I had, even including my bro, who I love, Pratt and I probably had more common ground than anybody. And we had one of the OG 3-man cells where they were actually a lot bigger than the 2-man cells that they converted. So it was actually like a much bigger cell, and it was just Pratt and me. So we had extra space in there. That means all the difference in the world when you're locked down. And then that extra bunk, that becomes like a storage unit. You got to take all your shit down when they do walkthroughs. But that was like probably the peak of my time in that medium high, right? And he was also the last bunkie I had in that medium high. So if you remember me talking in previous episodes, you see a case manager like every 6 months or every year or something like that. And by this time, I'm like 2 years in. And if you remember me talking in previous episodes, I told you about how you're designated to your security level in your prison based off of a custody point system. And the things that are determined in your custody level, meaning like minimum, low, medium, high, super high, whatever the case, you have certain categories. I was overclassified. I was a non-violent offender, and I was put into a violent, medium, high security disciplinary spot for one reason and one reason only. Because I initially had more than a 10-year sentence, you get extra custody points for that, and I was under the age of 25. If you're under the age of 25, they consider you to be a potential problem, right? But other than that, I don't have no violence in my case. I had guns in my case, but none used in commission of a felony, like no violent crimes. So there's no reason I should have been in a violent spot. So they had me really outside of my custody level. But they won't score your points out until you go to your what they call team. You go to your team like every 6 months or every year. And so I had been putting in requests trying to be closer to home and at a lower custody level, but they just give you the runaround. So now finally I get my team. They go in there, and the big game changer between my team before and then this team is I had my 25th birthday. So remember, I got locked up when I was like 22, had my 23rd birthday in jail, had my 24th birthday in Williamsburg, and then my 25th birthday in Williamsburg, I believe. I want to say all the way to 26, but it doesn't. That's not important. What's important is when you are above 25, your custody level drops significantly. So, I couldn't go to team right after my birthday, and now if you're 2 custody levels beyond where your actual status is, they have to lock you up as a liability. You go to special housing. You go to the hole. They call it the SHU. That's an acronym for the Special Housing Unit, SHU, right? Or solitary confinement. Now, what I didn't tell you is my co-defendant, Slim, who was my bro and was my bunkie, and we were in the county together, he had already went to team, and we're almost the same age. He went to team before me. So same exact situation. He was out of his custody level by 2 points. So when they did Slim's points, all of a sudden he dropped from where they call it a management variable, so they hold you because of your age, to oh shit, this motherfucker he scores out at minimum security. We can't have him in no medium high security. He's 2 levels outside his custody level. So they immediately, you don't even get to pack up your shit. They immediately send you to the lieutenant's office, and they change you out into SHU clothes, which is an orange jumpsuit. And then from that point on, it's crazy because your custody level drops, but they treat you like Hannibal Lecter. You got to back in with your hands. They open up a little slot, and this is just special housing protocol. Because whether you're in there because you stabbed a motherfucker or you're in there because your custody level's too low, you're still in special housing. Everything's treated the same. So they treat you like you're fucking Hannibal Lecter. So Slim, my Cody, he had already went to the hole like maybe a month prior, right? So, and I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, for all I know, they shipped him. I just know he wasn't on the compound anymore. So now I go do my custody points, and boom, my custody level drops. Now, luckily, the dude was kind of cool. He gave me some time to pack it up. So I went and hollered at my homie C. I went and hollered at all my homies around the unit. And then, I gave away a bunch of my shit because I know I'm going to a camp. So I can get anything when you go to a camp. So I don't know I'm going to a camp yet, but I know I'm minimum security. And minimum security is camp status. So I'm hopeful that I'm going to a camp. So what I did is I gave away a bunch of shit because I know I'm going to be able to replenish. And plus, you want to bless the people that looked out for you or that are good people, because a lot of these people, they got long bids. They're not going home for a long time. Some of them may never be in minimum security, may never see a camp. Right? Most, actually, if you're in a medium high, chances are you're never going to see a camp. So I packed up everything, said my farewells to all my bros, to my Cellie Pratt, and then packed up all my shit. They put me in special housing, and the shit's hilarious. So they take me to my cell. They don't know shit. Like, these people, they're not that organized. I mean, they know who you are, where you're supposed to be, but I get to the cell door, and I'm thinking, oh, great, another Cellie. You already know my back history with Cellies. They're not ideal, right? So now I'm like, damn, and I'm going to be locked down 24/7. When you go to a hole, you're locked down 24/7. You might get 1 hour rec a day, but it's not regular rec. It's like, if you ever been in a county jail, it's like that rec, where you got a ceiling over you. It's all chain link fence. You just get a little bit of fresh air, right? So it's 23-hour lockdown and 24-hour lockdown on the weekends. You get 1 hour rec Monday through Friday, but if it's a holiday, no rec. If there's some shit popping off, no rec. So So, I'm mentally preparing myself to be locked in a room with some asshole, right? So as soon as they popped the door, though, they got to back me in. They put me in there, and then they had to cuff him, because if you have a cellie, now you have to back in, put your hands through the slot, and cuff you. That way you can't pull no slick shit when they're opening the door to put somebody else in, right? So they go through all that, but so as soon as they pop the door, I look, I'm like, Slim, it's my fucking co-defendant. This motherfucker looked like Castaway. Like, what was the dude? So Castaway, on the desert island, Tom Hanks. Anyway, this is what this motherfucker looked like. He was on the desert island. He had nose hairs coming out that were probably 6 inches long. His beard was way down here, and this dude's usually like clean shaven. He got these big backs. I could tell he's going crazy. He's been in solitary maybe 6 weeks. Everybody don't bid the same. Like, some people love it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I was alone in there, I loved it. I'm writing, I'm fucking doing my workouts. I ain't got people screaming over me, yelling over my food and shit. Like, I'm peaceful in that motherfucker. Not bro. Bro was like, on one hand, like, he didn't even recognize me. It was like he was drunk. I walked in, he didn't even recognize who I was, and then I was like, Slim. And he was like, oh shit. Then he finally lit up, and it was like I found him on a desert island. He was like halfway delirious, talking about, the window and the this. I was like, man, you ain't even making no sense. But the funniest thing he told me right away, he's like, yo, he didn't know that I already knew about the dude Righteous and I'm trying to pick the politically correct term, the trans person, right? He didn't know that I already knew about that. And if you go back to a couple episodes, I think it was last episode I told you about, where the barber who I was trying to get a haircut from, he's like, this gangbanger dude, well built, tattoos all over him, like this masculine, manly dude, supposedly got caught taking it from behind by the transvestite dude, the man with the boobs, the long hair, So they ended up getting caught, so they got locked up, and now Slim is telling me the story like I don't already know. He's like, yo, he's like, there's Righteous right there, and there's Happy right there. Righteous was the barber, and then Happy was the stylist. Remember I told y'all the trans dude that was over there. So they're like 2 units apart. And so I go over there and I'm like cheesing, I'm laughing. Like, I'm not trying to laugh at people's misery, but I'm kind of hot because, yeah, motherfucker, I know all them times I was trying to get my hair cut and you running me out, motherfucker, you were getting fucked in your ass, bitch. Like, I'm looking at this motherfucker like, and so he's looking like a little puppy dog because he knows I know, and I'm like, hey, what's up, bro? And so I just had that little moment. And then, of course, Happy don't give a fuck about nothing. Happy is just happy. Hey! Like, Happy sees me. He knew me from laundry and shit. He's like, hey, my hello! Because we work together. They know your government name. Like, when you work on a specific duty, everybody calls you by your last name. That's what the COs call you. So Happy knew me by my government. So Happy's like, hey, my hello! So, and I'm laughing and shit. And, and just a little side note where it gets pretty fucked up, and this is a very common thing in jail. Now, I'm not judging anybody by their sexual preference. I'm not judging anybody by what they choose to do with their body, how they choose to identify. That's your business. I live and let live, right? But one thing that really fucking pisses me off is when people have a wife and children at home that are being loyal to them, and then they're going around and fucking motherfuckers in the ass and potentially getting diseases to bring back. And I'm not saying that was the case, but what I did know about the dude Righteous is supposedly he had a beautiful wife and kids at home. You know what I mean? And it's like, and now you're in here and you're fucking potentially getting fucked. That was the story that I heard. I don't know. I'm just saying what I was told. I can only relay the message. Right? So this is my introduction to the special housing unit. Now, the funniest part about the special housing unit is you get something called a car, right? And your car, you gotta have a car in the SHU. If you want to communicate with people in the other doors, you know, everybody's yelling through the door. And like in the state joint, people are actually signing letters with their hands and spelling words and shit. I'm not good at that shit. I'm just gonna be honest. I never, as much time as I did, you think I'd be perfect at that. I'm not. I'm not good at that shit. I'm the one yelling. I got the loud ass voice. I'm yelling. But, and in the SHU, even if you could do all the symbols and spell the words and shit, you can't see the people through the glass because the doors are staggered. So if you want to communicate, you either yell, but the biggest thing, you know, you might have somebody down there that needs some coffee. Shit, coffee could be like currency in that motherfucker, right? You're in there for a disciplinary. You ain't got no commissary, right? Because you don't get commissary when you're on a disciplinary, and there's no storeman in there, right? Because remember I told you in the prison economy, when you're in the you know, general population, you got a storeman in every unit. So you could not have commissary as long as you have some stamps. You can go spend, buy you a drink, buy you a snack from the storeman. But when you're in the SHU, there's no storeman. So, and you got no commissary. So you're in this motherfucker starving. All you get are your 3 hots in the cot, your 3 hot meals. And depending on what you ate that day, it might be some bullshit. Now, I will say, when you're in the hole, they do feed you a little extra. So that's a blessing. And then you could take like your little extra stuff and put it in your little styrofoam cup and then save it for later so you don't starve, right? That's what I did, really, just because I was like trying to save money, not trying to go to commissary, that type of shit. But this brings me to what was probably the most memorable part of being in special housing, other than just the crazy ass shit that people used to say and do in there when they're bored, you're on 24-hour lockdown. So let me take you back to the car. So the car is a line, right? So what you do is you take like old batteries from your radio, because you can have your radio in the hole. Even if you had a disciplinary, you can have your radio in the hole, and they will let you buy batteries even if you don't have your you know, privileges, commissary privileges. They'll still let you buy batteries. So people would save up their old batteries, and then they either put them in like an old toothpaste container that you cut, or you find some kind of thing to put it in, and the batteries weigh it down. So now what you do is you take your state issue blanket and you pull a thread out, and you pull it out, and you pull it out, and you pull it out, and you make this long line. It's like a fishing string. And then you take that long line and you tie it around your car, your batteries, your you know, whatever you made the car out of. Like you made all kinds of cars out of all different kinds of things. But the idea is it needs to be able to slide across the hallway, and it needs to have enough weight to be able to shoot it underneath your door. So now, and it has to have like a hook, right? So that you can catch somebody else's line. So now, let's say Righteous is down there down the hall, and you know, I got coffee. Well, Righteous has stamps, right? I want stamps. I'm like the dope man in the drought. I got coffee, and I'm the only one with it. I just came in, and I'm not on the disciplinary, so they didn't take my commissary. So I can order coffee every week. So now I'm like the dope man. All these motherfuckers need dope. They all got stamps. I can sell little pouches of coffee to anybody up and down this hallway that doesn't have commissary, that can't buy from commissary. So that's where the line comes in. I'm like, yo, you send me the stamps, I send you the coffee. All right, bet. Send me your line. So I take my line, I throw it under the door, and it might bounce like ping pong, chung, 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 or it's more like air hockey. You know, you shoot air hockey, it's bouncing, bing, bing, bing. So then, as long as I get the line within reach, now all Righteous or whoever else has to do, they shoot their line across my line, and as long as it's got that little hook that you can grab it, you pull it, and then you fish it in. And now you grab their line, and then you pull. Now they got to make sure they hold on to their line or they're fucked, right? So now you pull it in. Okay, now you take either a book or whatever you can put on there, and then you put the coffee in there or the stamps or whatever, and then you send it back. And then boom, again, they could just pull their line and they reel it in. So this is how we would share books. Like, hey, yo, you know, the book cart would come through, and now you're in the hole 24/7. I think I was in that particular hole for like 2 or 3 months, right? In this particular incident. I didn't do anything wrong, but my custody level dropped. So now they got me in the hole. Which, I mean, I didn't give a fuck. I don't want to sit next to the jack-off motherfuckers. Like, I don't mind being in the hole. But you can't just choose to be in the hole because you're expected to be in general population. And if you do, like, a check-in move, first of all, it doesn't look good. It looks like you either ratted or you can't be on the compound. Or they're just like, well, motherfucker, you're disobeying our order. You don't want to work. You don't want to make your bed. So we're going to take your good time. If you just want to stay in the hole all the time, we're going to take your commissary. You're going to take your good time. So you can't choose to be in the hole even if you want to. You actually have to do some shit to get disciplinary or be outside of your custody level. Or like be on some sick shit and be on some protective shit, on some check-in shit. That's a whole nother reason why you're being there. But I'm saying that to say, like, you're in there for a long time. You might get a rec yard, 1 hour a day. So what are you going to do? You're going to work out. You can only work out so much. There's 24 hours in a day. You're probably sleeping at least 12 of those, right? You're going to read. You're going to eat. You can only listen to so much news. You can only listen to so much radio, right? You can do that all day, but, you're going to do a lot of reading. So I used to read a book a day in there. Out in the free world, man, it takes me like a month to read a book. In there, I'm reading a book a day. And then depending on the read, I might read 2 books, 3 books even, if they're like real quick reads. So you're pouring through these books and now you want entertainment. So you shout, you yell out in the hallway, yo, what books y'all got? Oh, I got this book. Oh, send me this book. I'll send you that book. And a lot of these motherfuckers are strangers, but you're building camaraderie. You know what I mean? Like, most of them are all right. You're going to know who the assholes are. They're going to tell you when you come in because everybody's communicating. You're in this hallway on this wing with maybe like 24 other people. Yeah, I mean, by the time you're a month in, you know every single motherfucker in there and every new person that come in. So all y'all know, oh, such and such, he's in this cell, such and such in that cell. Oh, he's got the books. Oh, he's got the coffee. Oh, he's got the stamps. So now you got this whole little economy, microcosm society shit going within this wing. So, you're sending books to people, you're pulling books in, and then what we would do is we would, of course we got the radio, but you got your cellie in there, you're hanging out, we got cards, you're playing cards, right? And I was blessed in the sense where I actually had my co-defendant as my cellie, so we're bidding in there. And I'm not gonna lie, me and dude always got along to this day. That is my bro. But we're about to fight in that motherfucking hole because this motherfucker's going crazy. He's losing his fucking mind. I'm trying to talk to him about world events, and he's just snapping on me. I don't give a fuck about that shit. I don't give a fuck. I remember one day he just unloaded on me. I'm like, yo, bro, you need to chill. He's like, no, what the fuck do you mean chill? I've been sitting here for 6 weeks. I didn't do shit. Like, he's spazzing out on me. Like everybody can't handle that confined space like that. So we were literally about to bang in that bitch, and then we had to kind of get our wits. Like, bro, you're my bro. I'm your bro. Like, why are we even doing this right now? Like, I didn't put you in here. You didn't put me in here. Like, what's the problem? We need to work out or something? You want to do some burpees or some shit? You know what I mean? So, excuse me. So, I sat in the hole, and now again, you don't know where you're going. They don't tell you where you're going until it's time to go. And the common consensus is, even though we were camp status, you cannot go, just like you can't be held 2 custody levels down, you can't be sent to an institution 2 custody levels down because they don't know how you're going to act. A minimum security camp, you can walk off that motherfucker. You can walk right out that motherfucker. There's no fence. There's no gate. It's like just being out in the free world. So they generally don't drop you from medium high to that level. They tell you have to go to a low first. So I've experienced most of the custody levels by the end of my bid, but at this time, all I knew was medium high. And all the OGs would tell me, listen, man, you don't want to go to no low. The lows are all open bay. There's no respect. People are fucking in the bathrooms because when you're in a medium high, you use your bathroom. It's just you and your cellies. There ain't nobody else going in your cell to use your bathroom, right? Now the showers, there's people in the showers, but showers are closed at night. In the low, it's open bay, and there's bathrooms, toilets and showers. So motherfuckers sneak out after count, and then they go and fuck in the bathroom stalls. You motherfucking running trains on dude. You might wake up in the middle of the night to go take a piss, and you hear all this. motherfuckers getting fucked in the bathroom or in the shower, right? So like the Lowe's are like, and I did eventually go to a Lowe's. So that's all that shit is true. But me and my co-defendant, who was my cellie in the hole, he's on joke time. We're on joke time with each other, busting each other's balls and shit. And he keeps telling me, he's like, I don't know, I'm going to a camp. He said, I already know. They're sending me next door. So next door to the medium high, there was something called a satellite camp. And so that was the one stipulation where you could actually drop 2 custody levels if you did an in-house transfer. So now they're keeping it in-house, so it's okay to go from the medium high to the camp, right? But I didn't want to be in that camp. I wanted to be in Florida. I wasn't trying to be in South Carolina. I was trying to be moved out. So I really didn't even want to go to that camp. But my cellie, even though they don't tell you till it's time to go, in his mind, he already knew he was going to that camp. So now he's busting my balls, telling me, you're going to a low. They're sending you to the low. Yeah, we're going to be on that gay shit and this and that. He's just busting my chops, right? Because he knows I don't want to go to a low. Nobody wants to go to a low. So, but every day he joked. And every time they come through and they start designating people, he'd be like, oh, you didn't hear them? They said you're going to the low. And I'm like, for real? Fuck. And he's like, no, man, that bullshit. So, we're fitting off each other. And sure enough, we ended up both getting designated to the camp at the same exact time, which was pretty solid because, we went from county together. We went to the medium high together. We ended up being in the SHU together. Now we find out we're going to the camp together. So we have this shared experience. So that being said, the next episode, I'm going to take y'all to the camp. But before I do, let me tell you how the transition works. So they still treat you like Hannibal Lecter, even though they know you're going to a camp with no bars or nothing. They take your hands, they unshackle you, then you go wait in a holding cell, and then so in the medium high, you got khakis, and when you go to minimum security, they put you in green. So you have to dress out all over again. You have to go through, just like they check you in, you have to go through SIS and all that bullshit. That's where they do like the special investigation. They do the exact same thing when you go to another spot, even though it was an in-house transfer. So we're going to end this episode in the tank where they're dressing us out, getting our property, getting ready to send us to the camp. So for episode 9, that's a wrap. I appreciate y'all checking in. If you haven't already done so, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that follow button. Get active in the comment section. If you want to network, you want to get, talk about potentially getting on the podcast and interviewing with me, let's make it happen. In the next season, I'm going to be doing interviews. But right now, we got a story to tell y'all. This Live Struggle Legacy. I appreciate y'all checking in. We building pyramids.
Live Struggle Legacy. It's a whole movement.